Hello and welcome back to The Drag Detective, where today we are going to be solving the mystery of how UK Season 2 would have went if it was judged 100% fairly. And to figure out how it would be judged fairly, I am using over 300 responses to my poll. So thank you to everyone who took part in that. As we know, there was a couple interesting choices this season when it came to placements, so I was interested to see how the results were going to look from the poll, and to be honest, I think that we all agree on basically everything. I didn't really have to step in and make any decisions against what you guys said in the poll, so hopefully this will be a pretty hate-free comment section this week. Wouldn't that be fun? Just a reminder, this is all fake. It truly does not matter. But as always, I would love to hear your thoughts on the placements and how this was judged here. Was it really fair? Was there a couple things that you would have changed? Let me know. Before we get into it, make sure that you are following me on Instagram and Twitter. I post poll stuff there and updates, so make sure you're checking that out, as well as my Patreon, where for as little as $1, you can join my Discord, where the end of this month, we're going to be having our very first trivia night, where the winner of the trivia competition will win some Denali merch, so check out my Patreon for details on that. And let's get into this video. Now, right off the bat, episode 1, we have a pretty distinct moment of riggory with everyone's favorite cabaret performer, Miss Joe Black. I think that we all were a bit shook at some of the critiques that she got from this episode about her runways. The one that stood out most in my mind was Michelle Visage saying that her David Bowie look did not read David Bowie and wasn't a look that she thought of when she thought of David Bowie. That just kind of blew my mind, because when I think of iconic David Bowie looks, the powder blue suit and orange hair is like the first one that comes to mind. So I was like, okay. And obviously she had got some critiques on her dress for her hometown look, which she said was based on the inside of the building, not the outside. I'm not sure if she said that on the main stage. I'm not sure if they cut it or if she just, stayed quiet on the whole thing. But, I got sent a lot of pictures from you guys that showed the inside and her inspirations, and I was like, yeah, that checks out. So Joe Black is going to be safe here 100%. For the tops, I don't think there was any riggory. I think that Estina Mandela did great. Even with the ASOS jacket, I think that she showed two very different characters on the runway, both done flawlessly. And Lawrence Chaney, upon first viewing, I thought Lawrence should have won, just because I think her second look was so beautiful. But I do understand now that Estina did a much better job of portraying characters better than Lawrence did. So Lawrence and Ellie will be in the top here as they were in the episode. But now we have to look at the bottom 3, which is going to be different because Joe Black is not going to be in it. Now, I think we all can agree Bimini, unfortunately, fully deserved her bottom 2 placement here. That second look was just so unflattering. And as much as I liked her first look, I don't think that she fully sold the character. Now, Sister was in the low placement originally in this episode, and I fully see why. I think her Dusty Springfield was just like the most basic version of Dusty she could have been, and she didn't really perform the character as much as I think a lot of the other queens did. And then if we look at her second look, it says a message, and yes, there's a character there, but I just don't think that she pushed it as hard. Cheryl Hole did kind of a similar kind of character in the first episode of UK1, and I think that she did it a lot more successfully and performed said character a lot more animatedly? She was more animated in her performance of the character on the main stage, whereas I think Sister kind of was holding back. So now who is going to be the third member of this bottom 3? I looked to the poll. Because I really think everyone else did pretty good, at least with one of their looks. It was a successful, really good look. So I looked to the poll, and you guys overwhelmingly said Tia Kofi should have been low. And at first I was like, what? Because her first look was so good. I loved it. And I guess looking at her second look, the fabric did look cheap. It didn't really wow me in any way, so I guess that makes sense. I was trying to think of, well, who would I put there instead? And I couldn't really justify anyone else. So I guess I'm going to have to unfortunately agree here that Tia Kofi would be low, as much as I adore her. And that means we're going to have Sister and Bimini Bon Boulash in the bottom two, lip syncing to the iconic song Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood. I'm so happy this is finally a lip sync song. I've been begging for this song for years. And I must say, I was a little bit disappointed with how the lip sync went, only because Joe just wasn't giving what the song needed. Yes, this is a very campy song, but like, if I were lip syncing to this song, I would literally launch myself across the stage. Like, I would be like flinging myself to the drops in this song. And I didn't get that kind of energy from either of them, but obviously Bimini did a lot of her signature moves, and she was a little bit stunted by her, what were they, like 10-inch heels. So overall, Bimini did win against Joe, but would Bimini win against Sister? Because Sister's kind of an underrated lip syncer. She did really well in her solo lip sync, and she kind of turned it out in her second lip sync as well. Do I think that she would beat Bimini? I'm not sure. Obviously, Sister had more mobility with her outfit, but also I think that if Bimini saw that she was potentially going to lose, she could easily just throw off those shoes and go to town. So I'm not sure what would happen here. My gut is telling me that Bimini would probably win. She did some impressive moves, and I also think if she saw Sister doing more than Joe did, that she would turn it up a little bit more as well. I just have a hard time believing Bimini would go home first. Whereas Sister, I think she was very nervous this first episode. I don't think that she was giving it her 100% effort like we saw in later episodes. So maybe Sister does beat out Bimini, which would be a gag. But I'm inclined to think that Bimini still would win this lip sync against Sister, which means we have a first boot, which is completely different than the actual season. But it's not like they showed much of Sister through the rest of the season anyways, so it's not that much of a change. So now we get to move on to episode 2, which is Rats the Rusical. And this is another one that I was very confused on how placements should have went. Because there were a lot of queens that did amazing, and there were a lot of queens that did terrible. And so it's kind of like, okay, how do you pick which ones lip sync and which ones don't? So let's just kind of break it down. Of the queens who I think did amazing, Bimini did amazing, Ahura did amazing, Veronica obviously slayed it. I think Estina did great with her role. Tia Kofi was only on stage for like a minute and a half, but she took full advantage of that minute and a half and slayed. I also think that Ginny Lemon did so good. I was like, Ginny Lemon might be winning this thing. And we also have Joe Black here, who was originally not in this episode. So we have to look at how Joe would do. And considering Joe is a highly acclaimed cabaret performer, I am inclined to believe that Joe would absolutely slay it out of the park. So when picking the top 3, I think that it was obvious that Veronica Green won this challenge. Her character was so fun, and she had the best runway of the week. But I also think that if we're looking at who else is going to be high, I really think Joe Black would be up there. I think this is probably going to be Joe Black's like best episode, because it is exactly what she does. Like, it is so in her wheelhouse. And I'm also going to keep Tia Kofi in the top. But Ginny Lemon, like, so could have been there too, especially because her runway was so good and Tia's was so bad. And so, yeah, Ginny, for me, could have been in the top, but I understand that Tia for sure deserved it. And you guys ranked her as second best for the week, so I'm going to keep Tia in the top here. Now, the hard part, which is looking at the bottoms. There were so many options. Tace and Ellie, I think, really did not do well. Tace messed up a couple moves and a couple words. Obviously, she did do better later and she got back into her groove. Ellie just did not bring anything to her character. She was supposed to be like a sewer rat, and she was just giving me like nothing, like blank stares. She did execute, I think, the dance better though, and didn't drop any moves that I could tell, unlike Tace. And also, she had a really good runway by the standard that the other queen set for this runway, which wasn't very much. So those are two options. Another two options would be Lawrence and Cherry. Obviously, Cherry's runway wasn't good, and she didn't really give much face in the challenge at all. But I really didn't notice Cherry doing bad on first watch because I was too busy looking at how bad Lawrence did. I think Lawrence looked so scared, looked so out of her element. And yeah, it was just not, especially because Sister did so good. And I was like, oh my gosh, Sister is slaying. And then I look over at Lawrence and I'm like, oh, okay. I thought Lawrence was going to slay this, but she wasn't. So between those four, I was like, which ones are going to be in the bottom? And really, I looked at what you guys said. You guys put Ellie in the bottom too, but the only reason I'm going to disagree with that is because she didn't drop a single move. She hit every move, she knew every word, and she had a good runway. So I'm going to say Ellie would be safe out of these three for that reason. And I'm going to put Tace as low because even though she did drop a move and dropped a couple lyrics, I think, she gave the attitude that was necessary for that role later on in her part. So I am going to put Lawrence in the bottom here with Cherry to Memory. And obviously Lawrence is going to win because Cherry just did not emote enough of the emotion needed for this lip sync song. So yeah, kind of gaggy that Lawrence would be in the bottom this early, but I do think it was deserved. So yeah, we're going to lose Cherry here, unfortunately. I love this queen. I would love to see her come back because her runways, oh my gosh, if you've not seen her runways from this season that she didn't get to use, please check out her Instagram. She is incredible. So now we're going to move on to the design challenge. And the only thing I'm going to change here team-wise is Joe is going to be partnered with Ginny instead of Sister. Not sure if they would have picked each other, but it makes my job much easier. And really, I didn't see any rigging here with the actual outfits of like who they put in the top and who they put in the bottom. I think that every person that they chose who won in their pair made sense. I think Lawrence winning makes total sense. So we're all good on that front. That leaves Tace, Estina, Tia, Ellie, and Ginny up for elimination. Obviously, Tace and Ellie looked really, really good. They just didn't look as good as their partner. And also, Ginny looked so bad. I think that Joe Black, I'm not fully sure if Joe can sew or not, but I tend to think they probably do. I think that Joe would have to really do bad to lose against Ginny, so Joe is going to be in the top. So that leaves our bottom three, which was the original bottom three, Estina, Tia, and Ginny. But I think we were all in agreement Ginny 100% should have been in the bottom here. 100%. And Estina, I think, should have just been low. No, I don't think Estina's look really accentuated things that she should have. I think it made her look bulky in the shoulders, but you can't deny it was a well-made garment. It was clean. That is something that if I saw in a store, I'd be like, oh, that's cute. So yes, she might not have made herself look as beautiful as she can, but she still made a decent-looking garment, which cannot be said for the other two queens here in Tia Coffee and Ginny Lemon. Now here's the big question. Does Ginny Lemon lip sync, or does she walk off like she did in her actual elimination episode? I'm not sure. I know there's a Joseph Shepard exposed interview with Ginny. I didn't get to watch it before I recorded this. I'm not sure if Ginny walked off because she felt like she shouldn't have been in the bottom in her episode, if she just didn't want to lip sync against Sister since they were friends. But either way, whether Ginny stays or whether Ginny still walks off, Tia is going to win this lip sync. Tia is probably the lip sync assassin along with Tace of the season. So we are going to lose Ginny Lemon here one way or the other. So now we go into the Morning Glory episode, which is episode 4. And I watched this episode and was so confused. And I actually put out the poll before I'd finished watching the season. So there were already a ton of responses to the poll by the time I was like at this episode. So I watched it and I was like, am I wrong for thinking what I'm thinking right now? And I felt so validated when I checked the results of this poll because they said that Ahura 100% should have won. It wasn't even a close race between her and Lawrence. So I felt so valid in that moment. I think it especially comes down to expectations. Going into this episode, we already have a whole storyline from Ahura back in episode 2 that she doesn't like looking stupid and she feels awkward when she has to be funny. So going into this episode, which is an improv challenge, my expectations were, oh, Ahura's gonna flop this. And my expectations for Lawrence were, Lawrence is gonna knock this out of the park because she's so freaking funny. And yes, Lawrence did good, but Ahura did great. And I think just the expectations of Lawrence were higher for this challenge. So her doing good wasn't enough, right? We needed to see her do great because this is in her wheelhouse. This is right up her alley. So seeing someone like Ahura, who this is not in her wheelhouse, this is something she feels uncomfortable with, and she's already told us this. Seeing her excel in this challenge and just go completely off the handle and let loose and have fun, I was like, oh my gosh, Ahura totally won this challenge. And then when Rue said, Lawrence, you are the winner of this week's challenge, I was like, okay, I'll go with it because Lawrence did do well. I just think Ahura did better. And I was very happy to see that you guys agreed. So Ahura is going to win here. Bimini and Lawrence are going to be in the top. And what would Joe Black do? And how would Estina Mandela do in this challenge? And based on your guys' poll results, you don't have very high hopes for them. I don't really either. I don't know. Joe can be funny, I think, but we didn't really see it on the season. Estina, I don't know, honestly, how she would do in these comedy challenges. We never got to see her do a comedy challenge. I don't see it for her. I don't know. Am I wrong for that? You guys said she would have been low in this challenge, and I would agree. I think that Joe would probably take Ginny's role just because it's ridiculous and completely out there, and Joe would probably be like, that's so me, let me do it. And I see Joe kind of having the same problems that Ginny did, where she would do too much and it would get kind of convoluted and lost. So, also we have to talk about Veronica. Veronica did the worst in this challenge. In the episode with the queens that were there, Veronica did the worst. She was saved. She did have a great runway, but I still think that the runway it should be a tiebreaker. If two queens did the same caliber of either amazing or terrible in the challenge, the runway should break the tie. And yes, Veronica had a really, really good runway, one of the best of the week. She was flat out the worst in the challenge, so she should have lip-synced. So Veronica Green is going to lip-sync here, and I think she would lip-sync against Joe Black. And as we saw 2 different times, Joe Black is not a incredible lip-syncer, so I think Veronica would have no problem sending home Joe Black here. We never got to see Veronica lip-sync, but I think she would do pretty well. I mean, she's a dancer, she has a lot of charisma, and I think that she would do pretty good in this song, which is Keep Me Hanging On by Kim Wilde. It's obviously a pretty up-tempo song. It needs a lot of energy. I think Veronica could deliver 100%. So Joe Black is going to go home here. Now, here is a decision that I decided to make for this video. I am not going to have this be in a world where COVID was a thing, because this is an episode of it being fairly judged, and how can it be fair when one of the queens can't be there because she got COVID? It's not fair to the queens. Yes, I'm stretching this. Like, really, I should have Veronica go home in this episode because she got COVID. But I think, one, it makes a more interesting video to look at what would have happened if Veronica didn't leave. And also, I don't think it was fair that she didn't get to come back because she was doing pretty decent, except for the last week up until this point. So I'm sorry if you find it annoying that I'm not sending Veronica home here, but I'm just going to say, let's see what would happen in the season if Veronica stayed. So that means no one's going to come back of the eliminated queens, and we have our final 8 in UK Hun. Now, looking at the teams, team captains were Lawrence, who won the previous challenge, and Joe Black, who was the returning queen. Since there is no returning queen, we're just going to have the queen who was in the bottom 2 the week prior. This is usually how they do it. They have the winner, and whoever was in the bottom 2 be team captains. So our team captains are Veronica Green and Ahura. How do I see teams going? Obviously, Veronica is going to choose Tia Coffee. You know, they're really good friends. I think that Ahura is going to want to team up with Tace and probably Estina and Bimini. They're the dancers, they're the performers. I think Veronica is going to end up with Ellie Diamond and Lawrence Chaney. Obviously, this is a total guess. Who knows what would have happened, but I see this as the final teams. So we have the United Ken Dolls and Banana Drama. Who knows if they would still be called Banana Drama, but obviously the United Ken Dolls are going to win. I think that Estina would do incredible in this challenge, so she's going to win along with Bimini, Ahura, and Tace. And that leaves the other four of Lawrence, Veronica, Tia Coffee, and Ellie Diamond up for elimination. Of the four, Lawrence did really well in the challenge. It was kind of an underdog storyline. You were expecting her to flop because she was so nervous, and she did pretty good. And I think the judges loved her as well, so she would have been safe here. That leaves a bottom three of Veronica, Tia, and Ellie. I'm just going to say it, Ellie flat out should have lip-synced in this episode. Ellie's going to be in the bottom two. Now, Tia or Veronica, they're both performers. We didn't see how Veronica would do in this challenge. We did see how Tia did. Tia did fine. Her rap was a little wonky, to be honest. I think that Veronica would do pretty good. She's a singer. She is a performer. I think that she would be just fine. And, I mean, Tia's runway was very sad. So I think if they both did fine, that would break the tie. Tia's going to lip sync against Ellie Diamond to Don't Leave Me This Way. And holy shit, Tia in this lip sync was so good. But we know Ellie is also a really good lip syncer. So I think this would be a close race. I am going to give it to Tia because I think that Tia performs with both her body and her face. She knows how to emote a song. This song is both emotional and kind of fast and fun. Ellie, I think, can do the split. She can do a cartwheel. She can do all the moves, but I don't see the performance in her face. I think she's so focused on making sure her moves are good that she doesn't emote. So I think Tia would win this, and I think Ellie would go home here. And that leaves our final 7 going into the Snatch game. Now, how would Estina do? How would Veronica do? I think Veronica would do bad. I don't think Veronica's good at improv. She did horrible in the first improv challenge. I don't think she would do much better here. I think Veronica's going to be in the bottom 2, hands down. Estina, I don't know. She was low. I put her as low in the first improv challenge. But we know that Lawrence didn't do great, and we know that Tia Coffee didn't do great. So it's more, can Estina do better than those two? And I think if she picked the right character, she could. We have to look at Ahura also, who was put in the bottom 3 in this challenge. And for what? And for what? I think Ahura did one of the best of the week in this challenge, and I was very happy to see you guys agreed as well. You said she was 3rd best, and I have to agree. So we're going to put Ahura in the top here with Tace and Bimini Bambulash, but let's be real, no one was beating Bimini in this challenge. So now let's go back. We were bottom 3, Lawrence, Veronica, Tia. I think that Tia would be in the bottom with Veronica. Lawrence didn't do good. I think she would do better than Veronica would. I think Veronica would be very cringy. And obviously Tia had no idea what she was doing. So Lawrence, I think, would not lip sync here. But that leaves a Veronica and Tia lip sync, the two besties in the bottom 2 together, to Touch Me by Kathy Dennis. I don't know what the song is. I think that Veronica would send home Tia. This is Tia's 3rd time in the bottom. This is Veronica's 2nd. This wasn't Tia's best lip sync. I think Tia kind of knew at this point it was over for her. I think Veronica is a fighter. Veronica is going to fight no matter how many times she's in the bottom, no matter what critiques she get. I think Veronica would kind of tear up this lip sync, to be honest. And Tia did good too. I just think Veronica would do better. And so Tia would still go home here in 7th place. That leads us to our 2nd design challenge of the season, the Lockdown Superheroes Challenge. Superhero Challenge. And we know how Estina and Veronica did in the first design challenge, which was not good. Veronica's very lucky that Tia made horrific garment because Veronica so should have been in the bottom for that. And also we know that Tace in this actual episode did not make a good look. So I think that automatically puts Bimini, Ahura, and Lawrence in the top 3. And Ahura made one of the greatest, if not the greatest, design challenge look in all of Drag Race history. I'm still gagged and gooped by it, and I think she wins this hands down. Bimini, her look was off, but I do think that the other 3 in the bottom 3 would make an actively worse look than hers. And Lawrence, her look was great. I don't know why she was in the bottom. So they're in the top 3. Now let's go back to the bottom 3. I guess Veronica could do better than Tace. I don't think Estina could. I don't know. This is just a crapshoot. I think Veronica, of the 3 looks that we have to base this off of, which is Tace's actual look from this episode, and then Veronica and Estina's looks in the previous design challenge, Veronica's, I guess, was the best. It fit her fine. It was just ugly. So I'm going to say Veronica would probably be safe, and that Estina would lip sync against Tace in this episode. Now, here's another kind of mashup I wish we got, which was a Estina versus Tace lip sync. Now, they're lip syncing to Don't Be So Hard on Yourself by Jess Glynn, which is a, perfect dance number, and which is good because they're both dancers. This is going to be a double shantay. This is going to be the double shantay. 2 queens that have been pitted against each other since the very first week. They both have a challenge win, and this is both their first time in the bottom. So I think this is just the perfect, everything is perfect for a double shantay here. I think they would both slay it. And we're going to go into the stand-up episode with our top 6 still intact. Obviously, Bimini did great, Lawrence did great, Tace did great, Ahura did not do great. How would Veronica and Estina do? I'm assuming not good. I think Veronica would be low here, and Ahura would be in the bottom 2 with Estina. Bimini still gets her win, and we have a bottom 2 where Ahura and Estina do this beautiful ballad, and Ahura did so good in this performance. I thought that could have potentially been a double shantay between her and Tace. I don't know how Estina would do in a ballad lip sync, but Ahura did just win her 3rd challenge the week prior, and Estina was in the bottom 2 the week prior. That, on top of the fact that I know Ahura slayed this lip sync, and I'm not sure how Estina would do in a ballad, I'm just going to say Estina's going to go home here. But she made it so much further than she did in the actual season, which we love to see. And so now we have our top 5 BEASTENDERS challenge. And here's another thing that I'm not sure I agree with, but I'm going to go with it because I don't have a better option. You guys think Ahura would do great in this challenge. Overwhelmingly, you guys said she would be high. I'm not so sure. I mean, yes, Ahura did good in the improv, and yes, Ahura did good in the Snatch game, but I know Bimini did great. I know Lawrence ended up doing great, and I know that Tace did great as well. I'm not sure. It depends, I guess, on what role she gets and blah, 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 blah. I don't know. Let's say Ahura would be in the top here. Fine. Tace, I think, would be low. She did great. I just think that there were other people that outshined her and did a little bit better. That leaves Lawrence and Veronica in the bottom 2. Veronica, I think we all know why she would be in the bottom 2. Lawrence, I went back and forth because her performance was fine. Her final product was fine. But the path and the road that it took to get there was rough. She really was just giving up in the recording of this skit. And while I think everyone's final performance was really good in the actual episode and the skit that we actually saw, I think Lawrence should have lip-synced because they all did good, but Lawrence was the one that had the hardest time to get there. So for that reason, I am going to put Lawrence in the bottom 2 here. I think Veronica would do the worst out of the 5, and I think the other 3 would do good, if not better, than Lawrence. Bimini's still going to win this challenge. I think that she just slayed it out of the park, as she really did this entire second half of the season. So now we have a Lawrence and Veronica lip sync to Last Thing on My Mind. And, I mean, come on, this is Veronica's 6th week in a row where she's been in the bottom 3. And This is only Lawrence's third time in the bottom three, so I think that Lawrence would win this lip sync. She's a great lip syncer, and it's obvious she had such star quality. I think Veronica did as well, but I think she just needs a little bit more time to cook and prepare. So Veronica is going to go home here. And we have our top four of Bimini, A'Whora, Lawrence, and Tayce. This is the final four we deserved. I mean, come on. This is iconic. Now, because we don't have a lip sync for the crown, we're going to have to look at the dusted or busted scores. And in fairness, whoever has the best dusted or busted scores is going to win the season. Because no one did badly in this last episode. No one had a reason to be cut, really. So, who is going to get cut before the final lip sync? Who has the worst dusted or busted score for the season? It shouldn't be a surprise. It is, unfortunately, Tayce. That leaves us with our final three of Lawrence, A'Whora, and Bimini, lip syncing to I'm Still Standing by Elton John. Now, again, not very shocking. Who has the best dusted or busted score of the season? Who, in fairness, should have won the season? It is Bimini Bon Boulash. But I do want to put a little asterisk here. I get why Lawrence won. I'm in full support of Lawrence winning. I think that between the two, Bimini and Lawrence, they both did super good. I think Lawrence dominated the first half of the season. Bimini dominated the second half of the season. They both were great on the runway for the most part. They both showed their personality. They shared their struggles. They checked off every box necessary to be a winner of Drag Race. So I don't want me saying Bimini is winning this to take away from Lawrence's performance this season. I think they did great. A'Whora also did incredible. I think that all three of them are worthy of the win. I do understand why Lawrence won in the end, because they get a Wow Presents Plus show. And I'm not sure what Bimini would do for that, but I think it is a pretty easy bet that Lawrence is going to do great on whatever show she does. She knows how to command a room. She's witty. She's funny off the cuff. I think it makes total sense why Lawrence won the season. But if we're being 100% fair, Bimini had the best track record, so Bimini wins in this scenario. But again, this is a completely fake scenario. Who cares? It truly doesn't matter. They're all amazing queens. They're all worthy of crowns, and I really cannot wait for a lot of these queens to come back on our screens and grace us with their presence once again. So that is all I have for you today. I'm sorry it took a little bit of time for this video to come out. I know you guys have been begging for it, but I just wanted to get some Season 13 content out around the time of the finale. There will be more Season 13 content coming out soon. I cannot wait for that. And yeah, make sure you guys are subscribed. I don't really have a schedule to my releases, so if you want to turn on my notifications, you'll get the notification whenever I put out a video. And here are my socials, as well as my drag reporter and detective level patrons. Thank you, patrons, so much. We hit my 50 patron goal. Now it's time to hit our 75 patron goal. I cannot wait to put out what is happening with that. So check out my Patreon. And thanks for helping me solve this mystery today. I have to solve a different mystery now, which is, the question still remains, tea or coffee? Thank you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.